Good evening. I'd like to call the February 27th regular board meeting to order. This is a meeting of the Board of Education in public for the purpose of conducting the school district's business and is not to be considered a public community meeting. There is time for public participation during the meeting as indicated on the agenda. If everyone would please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Chambers, if you will please call roll.
Mr. Nicholas?
Here.
Mr. Ross?
Here.
Mr. West?
Here.
Ms. Pritchard?
Here.
Ms. Parkhurst?
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from the meeting on January 23rd.
Thank you, Mr. Ross.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Mr. West. Any questions, comments, or changes to the board meeting minutes from January 23rd? Hearing none, Mr. Chambers?
Mr. Ross?
Aye.
Mr. West?
Yes.
Mr. Nichols?
Aye.
Ms. Pritchard?
Yes.
Ms. Parkhurst?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Does the board have any additions, removals, or modifications to this evening's agenda?
No, I'll make a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Ross. Thank you, Ms. Pritchard. Mr. Chambers?
Mr. Ross?
Aye.
Ms. Pritchard?
Aye.
Mr. Nichols?
Aye.
Mr. West?
Yes.
Ms. Parkhurst?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Sable?
Oh, good evening. I am excited to have two presentations for our Board of Education this evening. Our first presentation I am excited and proud of because a very excited staff member approached me about coming and talking to our Board of Education because of the hard work that our student council has been doing with their leadership and their most recent leadership retreat, and more specifically, how the work that they do on a consistent basis, how it directly relates to our Portrait of a Bee and the work that we've been promoting across the district. So at this time, I'd like to invite our Medina High School Student Council leadership students up to the front and thank them for joining us this evening.
Hello, everyone. My name is Lexi Davis-Romine. I am a senior at Medina High School and a four-year student council member.
I'm Hayden Henry. I'm a sophomore and a two-year member of student council.
Hi, I'm Autumn Campbell, and I'm a freshman in student council.
So, in our service learning class, a class to help serve our school and community, we wanted to help provide more leadership training for our council members on the characteristics of Portrait of a Bee. We decided on doing a leadership day that was filled with workshops, large group activities, and meaningful discussions surrounding the different Portrait of a Bee traits. In class, we created and tested out small group labs that focused on being collaborative, a communicator, making responsible decisions, and being resilient lifelong learners. On the day of, students were mixed into groups in order to meet new people and help build community among the council. The main focus of the day was going into different small group workshops and with fun activities to help learn these different traits.
I ran a lab on the topic of being a resilient lifelong learner. We chose this topic because it is a useful skill in school and beyond, but is less commonly talked about. For our main activity, we did a rendition of the game of life. We made a game board with construction paper and had the students act as pawns. As they move through the game, they receive cards with various real-world scenarios. For example, you receive a bad test grade. How do you react? The students then discussed and answered how they would handle the situation. However, If they responded to the situation negatively or chose to give up, they had to move backward spaces to simulate how their negative mindset can slow them down from achieving their goals. At the end of the game, we discussed how this can be applied to our lives and how the skill of being a resilient lifelong learner can be strengthened.
My lab was communication. We did 3 different activities that fostered better communication and listening skills. During the leadership day, we saw how communication varied based on the groups. As the day progressed, we tried to show the importance of communication and how necessary it is to be a good communicator. We showed all the different aspects of a good communicator in our activities, as well as showing the effects of a bad communicator. While playing a blindfolded obstacle course with partners, we noticed that some people were better at communicating with their partners when they listened, felt listened to, explained things well, and stayed positive. Those who didn't use communication skills struggled a lot. At the end of every group session, we asked, why was communication a part of Portrait of a Bee? Their conclusion was because it allows us to build strong relationships, spread important information, and that it helps people succeed in group settings.
So I was mainly in charge of large group and team building with Portrait of a Bee. So we had 2 large group sessions, one to kind of help break up the labs, and the other to help pull together all of the Portrait of a Bee and its components. The first session was our winter games, where teams worked through egg spoon relay races, giant twister, and more, which was focused on collaborating and building relationships. Then, at the end of the day, groups worked to create their own Portrait of a Bee. They were tasked with drawing a bee and anything from a hive to some groups even put on lanyards to show responsibility. Each person had discussed how each certain aspect of the portrait showed leadership. Overall, the day was filled with collaboration and leadership development. We hope that our members are now able to take these skills and inspire others to develop the same traits and make positive change in our school, community, and beyond. Thank you.
Again, thank you for coming and presenting. I think one of the really special things about the presentation tonight is it's coming from our students. And throughout the course of the school year at our board meetings, we've been fortunate to have presentations, and most of those presentations have come from our teachers and our administrators talking about the work that's going on in the district in the implementation of the Portrait of the Bee. So to have students here talking about that and how you're utilizing that within the programming. You talked both about a class within the high school, which is a new class to the high school, as well as programming outside of the class as well. I think it's really neat to see things coming into fruition that we've been working so hard on for so long, and to see the energy and how beneficial as it's been. I might recruit you guys to come and work with our district administrators in August. We do an administrator retreat every August and work on leadership skills. Sounds like you guys really know what you're doing. Thank you.
I want to add just one thing. I do want to thank you for taking your time out of your evening to come and share this with the board and with the community. So thank you so much, and you did a great job. Thank you.
And next up, as part of our rotating building presentation, I'd like to welcome Mr. Perry. Mr. Perry is our principal over at Fenn. This is his first presentation, and I do wish him the best of luck following our student council students who just presented. I have no doubt he'll do a great job, though.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it's hard following students because they set the bar, right? Thank you to our Board of Education for having myself here tonight, and Superintendent Sable and Assistant Superintendent Chris Kwalik. So glad to be part of this community, and we'll have a chance to tell you about some great things happening at Fenn tonight. I have a first grade team that's here, but we know that the Board Appreciation Month is over, but because of the hard work and dedication you do throughout the year, we have a little gift for you. This is actually from Mrs. Rittendaro. She's our art teacher and some 5th grade students. It's impossible for me to pick which one, so I'm just going to pass these around. It's actually a clay mug, and there's a picture of the student as well as their names, and I'm going to say their names now, just so I don't forget. We have Ava, Abby, Mia, who's identical twin of Ava, Nora, and Tenley. So I'm going to start over here. You can just grab one, pass it around, and enjoy this gift from our 5th graders. So we have had some great things and exciting things happening at Fenn this year. First of all, we started as Student of the Month based off our 3 R's, being respectful, responsible, and ready. And I know Superintendent Sable was able to come over and talk about how the 3 R's apply to his job and how he shows being respectful, responsible, and ready every day. And he highlighted one of the things that are very difficult to make are snow day decisions. So he shared that with our students, and they enjoyed that. So thank you for doing that. We also continue our work with Portrait of a Bee and SOAR. And I could sit here and make a long list and share a long list with you of what's going on at Fenn, but we will be here for quite some time. We do have a PBIS store that we started this year where students get points, and they can go to that store once a month, but there's 2 different days, and they get to spend their points. And we have parent volunteers, and the parent volunteers, I put out a sign-up genius. Those spots are filled up for the remainder of the year. So we're really impressed with having parents involved, engaging with the community. We're also collaborating, communicating every day at our school, and the lessons that are taking place, the makerspace lessons, are just phenomenal. I'm so proud of the staff. I'm just thoroughly impressed. And one of the exciting things happening at Fenn this year, you're going to hear about in just 1 minute, is it was difficult to bring students here tonight because we wanted to be fair. So what you're going to see in a few minutes from our 1st grade team is a video and a community project that they did. And I think you're going to be really impressed with how much this was student-led. And then my 1st grade team, I don't want to burst your bubble, so I'll let you explain that. But most importantly of all the work taking place, our mission at Fenn and my personal mission is to build positive relationships. Without that, connecting with children, connecting with families and the community is just, it's impossible. So we take a high priority in that. One of the things I ask, and I'll wrap up my part here, is that when I interview someone for a teaching position, and it's the same question I ask my staff at the start of the year, 30 years or 35 years, whatever it is, flies by. You're going to be in the last day of your work, your career, and you're going to look back and extreme highs, extreme lows have happened. And the question is, I ask everyone, is what do you want your legacy to be? So we think about that every day. And then I ask my staff to think about that, because we're going to leave a legacy. And what the teachers at Fenn are doing and across this district is leaving a legacy. So I'm thoroughly impressed. And on that note, I'd like to bring up my 1st grade team, Julie Condit, Amy Periandri, and Kathy Maris, to explain what their students did.
Thank you, Mr. Sable, Dr. Kwolek, and board for giving us the opportunity to share with us the amazing work of our 1st graders. As you can see, our first slide is the Portrait of a Bee competencies. Being that we work with the smallest bees, almost, besides kindergartners in the hive, it's very important that we explicitly teach these competencies every day through our academic standards, as well as our social emotional standards in our activities, and also in makerspace and the different activities we do, so that they understand what it looks like and sounds like to be a respectful citizen, a responsible decision maker, a collaborator, communicator, innovative problem solver, and resilient learner. So as we began our project, we had the opportunity this year to see AJ Giuliani speak at the beginning of the school year. And we as a team wanted to develop a project-based learning because we were so inspired and empowered by his speech. Therefore, we wanted to take our social studies standards, as well as our social emotional standards and the Portrait of a Bee competencies, to create a service project. So 1st graders were called to action. How we teach most things are through mentor texts. So we, again, use this book to teach the children how to collaborate with one another, not only in daily lessons, but also through makerspace and everyday problem solving within our classroom. The most inspiring piece for me, and that was so influential and wonderful that the children learned, is that they learned that one small person can make a huge difference in the lives of so many. And we heard that echoed from their little voices time and time again, that their one voice made a huge difference. We also need to sometimes teach how to show kindness, what it looks like and sounds like to be kind. So again, we looked at several mentor texts and read how to be kind. We also realized that in order to do this project, because they are young learners and they are learning all of these competencies from the beginning, is that we had to pre-teach what the big project was going to be. So all the children were going to get to choose a job, which you'll hear about in a minute, of their own choice. So we decided to teach them how to show others in our school how to be kind. So they started with their own classroom and then school community to make posters for around the building to show how to be respectful citizens. First graders can solve problems that they see in their community. Again, we looked to these books. They looked within their own classroom community and then through without the school. And they realized through their own eyes that not everything is fair and that some people have things that other people don't. And so they wanted to do something where they could give back to their community.
So we presented with them. I'm Amy Perry Andrew, by the way. We presented them with the idea of giving back to an organization right here in Medina, which was the We Care Pantry. So as we got our thoughts together, we showed them this website and said, "What do you think we could do for this organization?" So some of the things that we asked them was, what items do they need at this organization? What do they collect? Because they were really not sure. The immediate thing they went to is food. People need food. But this pantry is a little different. So as we showed them some of the pictures, they were very curious about, well, why would people need laundry detergent? They just think it's something you have. So they brought a lot of conversation up amongst them. And then as we went further along, they love this picture with the toilet paper. And I've been to Bueller's and we bought things there. So a lot of good conversation came out of just looking at pictures and really talking about them in small groups. And then when we went to the personal care items, this really took them back. They didn't really expect to see that people didn't have soap. They didn't have razors or toothbrushes or toothpaste. So we said, well, how can we, do this? How can we help people who need these items? Because this is what they're doing at the We Care Pantry. And we said, who can inspire us to help us do this? And they immediately went to our friend family. We can ask people in our school to help out. We can ask our own family members. They actually created a letter to go home to all of the families, and then they also wrote announcements, and every day students announced and told the school about this. Now, you're going to see a little bit more. I don't want to give it all away. But these were some of the people that we went to right away to inspire us. Our custodian, Mr. Steffen, and our cafeteria manager, Mrs. Coy. They both helped in the project, and I'll wait a little bit so we can tell you about that. But we, as Mrs. Condit, or Julie Condit was telling you, we talked about kind of showing them a little bit about this first, and we designed some jobs for them. So my group was the marketing, and they created posters, they designed the boxes, and they even came up with a logo, which was amazing. So
my job was the technology piece of it, and they decided they wanted to make a commercial. Well, they're 6. So we needed a little help, and I needed a little help because I don't know how to create a commercial either. But thankfully, Mrs. Shriver and her 5th graders do. So we had 3 really awesome 5th graders that really, really helped us build this commercial. And you'll see it a little bit later on. But Sienna, Reagan, and Rowan, they really ran the show in the technology piece. They did everything from all the posts. They put the kids in front of the green screen, and I'll tell you more later.
And I led the other groups, and I say lead because the children truly did all the work themselves. Once they were tasked and they were asking the essential questions, again, as Amy said, the writers wrote the letter to their friend family that went home and also the classroom teachers. They went and spoke to our head custodian and our cafeteria manager, and they wrote those announcements that were very inspiring on our daily announcements. Our designers designed what the boxes would look like, and they also came up with a logo. Kathy Mears had the great idea to recycle all those beeliner boxes that the lunches came in, so that's what some of the personal care pantry boxes look like. And so the kids designed them and created the outside of them so they would look nice for the people who were receiving them. And then the organizer's job was to create a blueprint of how they wanted the collection to go. So what it would look like when the supplies came in. They would go down there in the morning with a little bit of help to help sort all the items, decide where they would go. And then the day, which is coming, it was an exciting day, when they packed all the boxes, what it would look like and what the assembly line would look like to pack all of those boxes.
Okay, so the marketers, they really use this slide a lot to kind of come up with what they wanted their posters to look like. And you can see this is, it just naturally, beautifully happened from a young lady named Noelle. This was the logo she created, as we were talking about, and she named it the Fen Care Pantry. She came up with that herself. So it was just amazing. And we copied it and we put it on all of the small care packages that each child put together. And they colored them and they taped them on there. It was really amazing. And she was so proud. She was so amazingly proud.
So, as we said, what we had is we had the B-liner boxes, and they had tables set out in the hallway where they collected travel size items. So there were, travel size toothpaste, travel size shampoo, and a few of those things, as well as collecting some of the other needs that the personal care pantry told us, like they always need laundry detergent. That's a high item. And paper towels and toilet paper. Those are all supplies that they cannot get with their, gosh, I forgot the name again, their card. The SNAP card. I'm sorry, I've said STAR card so many times. They can't get these items with their SNAP cards. So that's why we kind of focused on these items. So what happened on the day of, this is our holiday party. They chose not to have a Christmas party and put these together for the kids. So we had 8 different stations around the room that were set up, that the kids took their B-liner boxes and they went to each station. We had moms helping out that just really kind of stood there, and the kids would pack up their boxes and rotate around the room, gathering things for their different parts. They packed over 100 of these little B-liner boxes in a really quick amount of time. It was like 45 minutes. It was fairly amazing. But they also we had several stations because we couldn't get all 60 kids going through the line at once. So we had some other stations going on that day too. And they also created cards for the Veterans Home that day too. So we had several other kind of projects going on while one class was rotating through. We packed, after they had packed up their personal care pantry boxes, we packed over 15, there was probably more than that, the paper ream boxes full of all the detergent and paper towels and toilet paper and everything the other things that they had created. When this project started, we started talking about how we could be the innovative problem solvers and how to figure out what others needed. Well, this is the commercial that they showed, that we made. They went down with the 5th graders in front of a green screen, and they had written all the parts, and then we sent this out to our Fen family, and well, I guess that's probably it. We want to thank you for giving us the opportunity to come and tell you about it.
Thanks to
That is totally awesome. I want to thank Fen for coming in presenting tonight. A couple things that really stood out for me, and I think I brought this up before with other presentations, but to see our staff members up here, and we talked at the very beginning of the year with Mr. Rogers and showing your passion and loving what you do, and to see our staff stand up here and present to the board, and you look passionate and you look happy, you look like you're loving what you do. And when you see that out of the adults that are working with our children, you know our kids are learning, and that's so important and means a lot. So I want to thank you. And then to see the scope of a project like that, we talk about everybody who works for Medina City Schools as an educator. And this first grade project really went beyond just the teachers in the classroom. You showed how you involved other people, the custodian, the kitchen staff, in this project, and then engaged little first graders in the community as well. So thank you, and I would really encourage you to maybe drop your name in and apply for one of our innovation awards. I have a feeling you might be able to get a little bit of recognition that's well deserved. Thank you.
If I may, I wanted to also thank you on behalf of the school board, and this was amazing, this project, and it just really touched my heart. You covered all of the aspects of a portrait of a bee with collaborating with the other staff and the fifth graders, and the fact that the first graders were willing to give up their holiday party to pack those care packets. I mean, that says so much. So thank you so much for your time and teaching our kids. Some of these are lifelong lessons that they're learning, and not taking things for granted. That they see in their pantry every day. Not everyone has those things. So thank you so much for all that you do.
If I may, I noticed I saw a lot of servant leadership and service before self in there. And I also know from personal experience with working through scouting in this community that if you challenge little kids like this, they tend to surprise the adults a lot. So I saw that in there, and that's really nice to see. So thank you very much.
And of course, you're welcome to stay or sneak out.
And Mr. Perry, please thank the fifth graders for our mugs. That was very nice. Thank you.
Next up, I have some updates regarding facilities. And most of this is information that we have already put out to our staff, parents, and community, but just wanted to reiterate the information. We have been running a series of community roundtables virtually. I know Dr. Kwolek has completed her two, where she talked about the redistricting. Mrs. Cassidy had her first session with Mrs. Pazitka on curriculum, as well as preschool programming and special education, and they have another one coming up here on March 2nd, which will be the evening one. Then heading into mid-March, March 10th and March 15th, our Director of Business, Ryan O'Cole, is going to be running two sessions on March 10th and March 15th, where he's going to be talking about the actual physical buildings and some of the proposals. And then heading into late March and early April, March 22nd and April 5th, Mr. Chambers, our treasurer, is going to talk about the financial components as well as how potential bond issues as well as operating levies play into this picture as well. I know the first sessions that I've been in attendance at as well have been very open conversations, small presentations at the beginning with some information, and then really just an open community roundtable discussion. So I think people have found those very beneficial. If individuals are interested in participating, please go to our website. You do need to sign up so you can get the link to participate in the virtual session. In addition, I did want to share, so everybody keeps their eyes and ears open, that Kids First is in the process of working on a survey regarding the facilities process that we are looking at with the yellow plan in the 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th grade building, as well as some of the supplemental plans that we've discussed that may or may not go along with that. They are purposely handling that rather than us. We thought it appropriate that that come from a third-party entity. We want to make sure that individuals feel comfortable giving open feedback in an effort to make sure that we have the right information to help guide us in making the right decisions for our district and students and staff's future. So people should watch for that within the next couple weeks, Amy? Week. So within the next week or so, I anticipate that they'll be putting that survey out. That'll be coming out virtually, and I believe that there will be some paper copies available as well in certain places in the community, such as some of the retirement homes and things like that. In addition, we are organizing parent meetings specifically for the Heritage and Garfield communities. We just recently got some dates on the calendar, and we will be getting a communication together within the next several days and sending that out specifically to the parents at those two buildings. And those meetings are intended for those parents within the buildings to discuss redistricting as well as facilities. They're specifically chosen because those are the two buildings that are the most greatly impacted by the redistricting process. The last piece with the facilities is we do eventually need to make a final decision in regards to the direction we're going to be going with the facilities planning. The yellow plan is a decision that has been made to move forward in terms of a bond issue or bond request with the 5, 6 building and 7, 8. However, we've been having a lot of discussion, and I know there's a lot of discussion occurring out in the community as well as within the district about some of the other, and I call them tonight, supplemental ideas that we've talked about as well. We're continuing to get feedback on those ideas and potential options through the community chats, through the Kids First survey that's going to go out. And our goal is come April to have a finalized plan so that we can start hammering down what a bond issue would actually look like. So we want to work with the board heading into April to talk about what that finalized plan will look like based off the feedback that we're continuing to get through these other means that I shared this evening over the course of the next month or so. And then the last piece of all this is the bond and operating levies. This is in the works. I know Mr. Chambers is already working with the appropriate government entities to work out potential numbers in regards to a bond issue and how that impacts bond issues that are currently in place and are in the process of or may be falling off. In addition, Mr. O'Call has been working with our architects in regards to some of the facilities plans and the costs for those facilities plans as well. We will need to work with the board to make decisions on how we are going to proceed in regards to the bond and operating levy issue. As we have been discussing in the presentations, we are in a situation where in order to do any construction, we do need the passage of a bond issue for that to happen. We also are in a position where we haven't asked for new money from the community in 10 plus years, and we are needing new operating monies, which is a major priority for us. The initial thought was to bind those two issues together, the bond and operating issue. We do have more time to make that decision, but that's an ongoing conversation that we're going to need to have as a Board of Education and as an administration over the course of the next month or so. And I think the information that we receive back from the Kids First survey, or that Kids First provides us through their survey, I think will probably be helpful in trying to guide us in making some of those decisions as well.
Mr. Sable, regarding that survey, you said it'll be available virtually, so through social media or a website, or just how can people find it?
Yeah, all over the place.
Okay.
It'll all over the place. It'll be accessed through Kids First, though. It won't be accessed through Medina City Schools like when we would typically send it out.
Thank you.
Good evening. We're here to talk about January's financials. I know it's the end of February. Happy birthday, Bob, my brother. Turned 60 today, so we had to remind him about it. The district bank balance decreased $2.7 million in January to $54 million. This is $4.5 million below last year at this time. The 5-year forecasted revenues were below last January by $1.1 million. Real property taxes, school foundation monies, and property tax allocations all account for the decrease. 5-year forecasted expenditures were above last January by $1.2 million. Personal services, benefits, supplies, and other expenditures, transfers, and advances also accounted for this increase. The sales tax fund balance increased to $3.1 million. The district spent approximately $54,000 in January, with the majority of expenditures on roofing projects. The district received their fourth quarter collections from the county of $1.09 million. The rec center capital fund balance decreased to $133,000. The district spent approximately $17,000 on roof replacement and received approximately $4.4 million from the city as reimbursement. The district has received $54,000 in investment income for January. The total collected for the current year is approximately $90,000 above last year at this time. And finally, the district has forecasted funds true days cash balance estimated to be 142 days. This is down from December by 10 days and down from last year by 27 days. Any questions?
Mr. Chambers, this is not specific to this financial report, but I know we do get some money from the state lottery, although it is very small and minor. But with the new sports betting that passed, can we anticipate receiving any money to school districts from that?
I know you're lying to me, right? This is a question that you know the answer to. The answer is no, we're not getting a dime from the additional betting here. That was not part of the legislation at all, so no.
I thought so, but I just
the dollar
wanted to
figure that we get
clarify.
from the lottery is roughly $300,000 a year. So, okay, we have fund-to-fund transfers that are going to be on this this agenda. We have transfers coming from the general fund to the rec center, $120,000. This is part of the increase that the city and the school agreed to here last year. It'll be increasing $10,000 a year, so next year you should be looking at $130,000 from the general fund to the rec center. We also have our last of our auxiliary service transfers. These are monies that were held over from last year that the state approved, so we're moving them to this year's funds. $50,000 for St. Francis, $10,000 for the nursery, and $24,000 for Medina Christian Academy. We have an underwriter engagement letter. Since we're talking bonds, we need to work with an underwriter. The underwriter that I'm recommending is Stiefel Nicholas. Stiefel has worked with the district in prior levies and prior bonds. When we were refunding our bonds, we had Stiefel as our underwriter, so they have been very good to the district. We also have our auditor's resolution accepting rates. This is an annual thing. Basically, the auditor sets the rates, the board approves the rates, and we give them back to the auditor. These rates are for the 23-24, well, I should say the 24 collection year. So we're looking at setting those up. I believe I told the board in their update that with this, if there is any change, the auditor will give us new rates here in November to be approved in late November, early December, so they could have new rates for 24. And finally, there's, at the end of the program, valuation resolutions. Last year, the state decided that it was in the board's interest to understand that we do challenge valuations. Board understood that. All boards understand that. I believe that this is nothing new for boards, that challenge of valuations occurs just to make sure that it is fair for the rest of our taxpayers, that if we have an individual or a property owner that has a sale on their property and the sale is above what the auditor has, that it's only fair for the rest of our taxpayers that they're paying their fair share. So this is what the district has done in the past. It's what we will be doing in the future. However, with new legislation, you have to pass a resolution for each of these different communities, organizations, companies, whichever they are. So tonight we have 3 different resolutions, and they're at the end. We have to pass them individually according to our legal advisor, just so we keep in line with new regulations from the legislature. Questions? Thank you.
Okay, if there's no questions for Mr. Chambers, we'll move on to our board communications. Mr. West, if you would like to start, please.
Excuse me. I don't really have a lot. I did get to see I watched some of the Midwest Showcase, the show choir competition. That was phenomenal to see that, and lot of talent out in Northeast Ohio and where all those schools come from. Really impressive. And then I had attended the meeting at the PAC where it was all about the redistricting, and we attended that. But that's about it. I don't really have that much. So thank you.
Thank you. I just wanted to really thank the staff for all their hard work on the redistricting and the facilities process. I know there's a lot of change coming up, and from Mr. Sable and his staff, you're getting the information out as best you can to the community. There's a lot of questions out there, trying to answer every of them, all the questions, and then listening to the community. As you said, you brought up the supplemental plans, which are coming in from community groups. So I appreciate you listening to all that, and as we work through all this. So appreciate all the hard work that you and your staff are doing on all this. I know it's a big deal. Thank you.
I have just a couple things. First off, I want to thank Abby for the mug. So if anybody knows Abby, let her know that I said thank you. Otherwise, it's on record. She can check back in 5 years. The next thing that I wanted to mention was in the superintendent communication, the two presentations that we had. I don't think we can fully grasp like how critical a lot of those skills that our students are learning. I mean, we're talking about like just necessary like soft skills that carry over to everyday life and in their careers eventually. That I know when I graduated college, there were 90% of the people were graduating and had no comprehension of the skills that we have first graders learning. Like that's so huge, and that's such an advancement just for community-wise and for career-wise down the road for all of our students. So I wanted to make a note of that. Then also we had a curriculum meeting, I believe this month. Sorry, I'm trying to keep everything straight since I missed last month, the last board meeting. The curriculum meeting was actually like super interesting. Once again, another thing, credit to our staff and our students. We went and we were able to sit in on a class that was trying to find a peaceful resolution for World War I and settle the conflict. I think I heard that there was one class of warmongers that didn't care, and they wanted blood spilled. So glad we didn't see that one. That sounds like that might have been messy. But the class that we were able to go into, it was awesome to see the kids like starting to have their minds set in motion for, okay, well, you know, now I have to trade land, or I have to trade military power, or these type of things to try and resolve what retrospectively we know is one of the worst wars to ever be fought in the world. So, and that was a high school class. So for any high school parents out there that might be watching, that's what your kids are doing. I understand when I was a high school student, I didn't communicate with my parents what was going on in school. So they are learning some great stuff. And then finally, because I missed last month's meeting, I just wanted to kind of give a thank you to really everybody, because I've been on the board now for over a year in February here. And I've met a ton of great people. I've learned a ton of great things. I've learned various different types of interactions, and everybody has been willing to put a foot forward and try and help us new board members acclimate as fast as possible and teach us kind of maybe the legislative aspect of things, or like Mr. Chambers here, teach us the financials, because I feel like especially for the first year, it's like, okay, that's big numbers, but it's difficult to really understand exactly what those numbers are. But he was great helping us kind of really wrap our head around that. So fellow board members, thank you. Mr. Sable, thank you. Mr. Chambers, thank you. All the faculty, thank you. Administration, thanks. And yeah, I'm done.
Thank you, Mr. Nichols. You just displayed the lifelong learner aspect of the portrait of a bee. Thank you.
I have a number of things, so just sit back, relax. First of all, tickets for the Hall of Fame at Blair Center. The final date to purchase them is Friday. We're going to honor 10 individuals in one group, and one happens to be the uncle to Mrs. Parkhurst, Alan Parkhurst, who owned the Flower Gallery. So please come. You can just go on to the school website and purchase your ticket. The Career Center had a record number of sophomores attend their visitation, and to see all their programs. And this is a class that did not get to do the 8th grade visitation, so that's really impressive. One of our students, Hannah Prock, was the Student of the Month out at the Career Center. She's in the teaching professional area and wants to become a math teacher. Good luck, because math is not the kids' favorite in classes. Adult Ed is offering CPR classes and reinstating the STNA program. So if anyone's interested, they are doing a lot of great things out there in the Adult Ed. Along the sports line, wrestling team has 8 kids going to districts. The boys swimming team this past weekend at state, highest finish ever, and we had Braden Morford become a 4-time All-Ohio athlete in that area. The MHS writing team took 2nd place out of 16 schools down at Cloverleaf. Gymnastics team tied for 1st in the conference, and they're sending their entire team along with 6 individuals to the state tournament. Hopefully they can maybe take the title instead of, but however, 2nd place is great in the state for gymnastics. I got to see the underclassmen play. It was kind of dark. It was a little depressing when I walked out, but the kids did an amazing job with that performance. I've been to the English class and got to listen to the report about World War I. I've also been able to go to Mrs. Ferrugia's medical class, and I got to give them my life story. It's interesting, they don't ask questions that you would ever think they would ask. You're like, do you have any pets? And you're like, okay, yeah, sure, because you're just kind of got a script. I'd like to remind everybody that the Claggett Drama Club is putting on Beauty and the Beast this weekend. The band is having Jazzmatazz on March 18th. And finally, former 6-term board member Virginia Gendrevin passed away recently. She's known by many in the city as the Tree Lady because almost every tree on this campus was planted or urged to be planted by Virginia. She had a fierce passion for schools and the community that cannot be rivaled by anyone. Her memorial service will be March 16th in the United Congregational Church. And that's it.
Thank you, Ms. Pritchard. I'll just add a few things. The policy committee did not meet this month just because, as you'll see on the agenda, we have our 2nd reading of the policies from last month. We had the 1st reading, so there's no new policies at this time. And then just to echo some of what Mr. Nichols said about the curriculum committee, we did have a field trip to those freshman world history classes. And what really stood out to me was the attributes of the Portrait of a Bee that were being displayed, the collaboration, being responsible, innovative, communicating. They were really working together. There were 2 long tables, and they all had their Chromebooks out, and they all had documents, and they were all working within the same document. So utilizing that technology, I'm a parent of a high schooler. I don't always know what's going on at school. How was your day? Fine. What'd you do? Nothing. So to actually see those kids in process and at work, and those are the things they're going to be doing out when they move past our walls and get jobs and they're in college or going right into the workforce. I mean, they are going to be working with each other, collaborating in that team environment. So it was just great to see them doing that right here in our classrooms. So kudos to the teachers, kudos to those kids. Thank you again to Mrs. Cassidy for allowing our curriculum committee to go visit. We do have parents in our district that are on that committee as well. So it was a great experience. Thank you. Okay, it is time now for public participation. Community members wishing to address the board are asked to abide by the following guidelines. Attendees shall register their intention to participate, and we do have 2 attendees who did that in the public portion of the meeting. After those that have registered have spoken, if time allows, we may ask for public participation from all other attendees. When you come up to the podium, please state your name, address, affiliation. Please keep comments to a maximum of 3 minutes. No participant may speak more than once on the same topic unless all others who wish to speak on that topic have been heard. All statements shall be directed to the presiding officer. No person may address or question board members individually. And we also have additional rules for participation in our board agenda here. So, Michelle Mueller, I'd like to come up to the podium, please.
Hello, I'm Michelle Moyler, and I'm a teacher at Heritage. Sorry, I live at 955 Red Oak Circle. I'm a teacher at Heritage and have been for 30 plus years. I'm a graduate of Medina City Schools. I'm a mother of 2 graduates of Medina City Schools, and I'm also the daughter of a graduate. And I start by telling you this because I want you to understand my loyalty to the district. It goes deep. I've read and I've reread the redistricting guidelines resolution that's on the agenda today, and I appreciate your belief that a strong sense of one district is essential for student success. I also appreciate the belief that all children deserve the same educational opportunities and common experiences. I would share that while both of my children attended the high school, they did have vastly different experiences, both of them good, but I don't know that redistricting necessarily ensures common experience. I also understand the need for a preschool facility. Helping Hands is a great start to school for our littlest bees. I do have 3 main areas of concern regarding redistricting. Some things I've heard others say in the community as well, but this is really coming from me. The first one for me is timing, and I know that the need is real at the elementary level for redistricting. I understand that. But my thinking was that since the grade level configurations that are going to be in the elementary schools depend on the results of the bond issue, I'm just curious why we couldn't wait to develop the plan until we know really what grade levels are going to be going where. My second big concern is the process. The community was told about the closing of Heritage before the staff. Some of us found out because we don't have lives and we watch the board meeting at home. The redistricting map was presented at the community meeting, and we were told that it would not change. In the past, staff and community were included in the drawing of the lines, so to speak, and stakeholders' ideas and concerns were heard and validated throughout the process. And then my final main concern is in regards to busing. And I have heard this concern repeated throughout town. The questions that I hear are, where are we going to find drivers? Because it's already a struggle. And we're going to increase the number of kids that are going to be riding buses. What's the cost going to be for the busing? How long will students be on the bus each day? And this was a new one to me today, but I had, someone wanted to know if there was truth to the rumor that high school busing will be cut to accommodate the increase in elementary and middle schoolers needing busing. I know that our students are going to be taken care of no matter what school they attend. Principals, am I done? Thank you. I know they're going to be taken care of because everybody will make sure they are. Thank you.
Thank you. Betsy, Jenny? Okay, thank you. Okay. There's no one else. We will move on to our superintendent action items.
The first item for presentation tonight is actually a separate voting item. It is a resolution for redistricting plan. Redistricting guidelines resolution, whereas the Board of Education of the Medina City School District believes that students should be assigned to buildings based upon the best interest of students and upon the best use of district resources. Whereas the board has considered safe student transportation and travel, the convenience of access to schools, the financial and administrative efficiency, the effectiveness of instructional program, and the wholesome and educationally sound balance of student populations. Whereas the board believes a strong sense of one school district is essential for successful students who represent our portrait of a bee. Whereas the board recognizes a decrease of approximately 1,439 students since 2013 in the district, and the increased legal requirements from the state to service preschool students with special needs that require a separate building for educational purposes. Whereas the board recognizes that a school district of 5 different elementary schools in 52 square miles faces challenges to meet this goal. Whereas the board believes that all children deserve the same educational opportunities within our boundaries. Whereas the board believes that a common district-wide Medina City School experience would bond our expansive district and foster a strong sense of community. Therefore, be it resolved, the Board of Education of the Medina City School District adopts the map as attached to redraw the district boundaries beginning in the 2024-2025 school year. Therefore, be it further resolved, the board instructs the superintendent of schools of the Medina City School District to adopt plans, procedures, rules, and regulations that support the above boundaries.
I'll make a motion that we adopt action item G from the superintendent.
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Ross. Thank you, Mr. Nichols. Are there any questions or comments from the board?
I know this is really hard for the community, particularly in the Heritage area. Having gone to Garfield, it's a hard thing for me to see not to have the students go, but I think in the best interest for everyone, as far as providing equal opportunities, and I understand what Mrs. Moyler is saying. Everybody who comes through school, everybody has a different take on how their high school or elementary career went, but I do think, for the savings that we'll make on closing the building, but not totally closing it, and also just the simple fact that Medina has always been able to weather these issues and the busing, and I think it is going to be positive. And with the continued state requirements and no money, we have to do what is financially the best for everyone in the district. So I know it's hard, and I struggle with Garfield closing, trust me, because I will chain myself there eventually, but it just has to be at this point. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Pritchard. I concur. It is a hard thing to do, but the district has done this before, and our goal is to provide the best educational opportunity that we can for all of our students. And students will have unique experiences, regardless of that. But I think this is and I will speak on behalf of the board. I think this is the best thing that we can do for all of our students and our community. It's an investment in our community, providing these opportunities for our students. And I do thank the administration for all of their hard work. This has not been easy. It's been challenging, and a lot of time and effort and thought has gone into this process. So I do thank them for that, and I thank all of our community members who have come to these meetings that we've had, and I continue to go to the virtual meetings that are scheduled. And if there's no other questions or comments, Mr. Chambers, if you'll call roll, please.
Yes, Mr. Ross? Aye. Mr. Nichols?
Aye.
Mr. West?
Yes.
Ms. Pritchard?
Aye.
And Ms. Parkhurst?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Chambers.
Yes, if it pleases the board, it is recommended that the Board of Education approve the January 23 Treasurers Report. Item 2, supplemental to 22-23 permanent appropriations. It's recommended that the Board of Education approve the following supplementals to the 22-23 permanent appropriations. You have individual principal account movements up in Euro 18s. You have an athletic increase due to a donation at 300. You have auxiliary service funds for the 22 year, which are basically setting them up so we can make the transfer that we talked about earlier. And then the 23 service, auxiliary service, because they received their last of their funds from the state here in February. And then you have your school safety grant, $16,000, that these monies came in 2019, and these are the last of the monies we're trying to use up. Item number 3 is fund-to-fund transfers. We have the rec transfer that I spoke about earlier. We have the auxiliary service transfers I spoke about earlier. Item number 4, resolution accepting the engagement of Stiefel Nicholas and Company. It is recommended that the Board of Education adopt the resolution accepting the engagement letter of Stiefel Nicholas and Company Incorporated to confirm underwriting engagement relating to potential municipal security transactions for unlimited tax, general obligation notes and/or bonds, Series 24 or 25, and certificates of participation, Series 24 and 25. And finally, a resolution accepting the amounts and rates. It's recommended that the Board of Education adopt the resolution accepting the amounts and rates as determined by the Budget Commission and authorizing the necessary tax levies and certifying them to the County Auditor for tax year 23, collection year 24.
I'll make a motion to approve the treasurer's action items.
I'll second.
Thank you, Ms. Pritchard. Thank you, Mr. Nichols. Any questions or comments from the board?
No, just one. The rec center. Mr. Chambers, you mentioned it. We increased it to 120, but I heard you say 130.
Yes, 130 next year, 140 the following year, and 150 the year after that.
Okay, I got you. I do remember. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Mr. Chambers, when you're ready to call roll, please.
Yes, Ms. Pritchard?
Aye.
Mr. Nichols?
Aye.
Mr. Ross?
Aye.
Mr. West?
Yes.
Ms. Parkhurst?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Sable.
Number 1 is donations. It is recommended that the Board of Education accept the following donations. A few I want to point out here is a donation from our athletic boosters for track equipment, including pole vaults for the boys and girls teams. Just want to point out the extensive financial support provided through our athletic boosters in purchasing equipment as well as uniforms for our athletic programs, and thank them for their continued support. In addition, I also want to point out the $7,000 donation to our gifted elementary programming from the PACE team, which is a parent gifted support organization in our district in order to do some extended STEM activity with building flying robots so that they can do programming. And I think they're going to be flying those in our gym and outside. So look forward to that. In addition, I also want to point out the donation from our student council to the Hall of Fame, which Ms. Pritchard had brought up this evening. I think Ms. Pritchard was actually a founding member of the Hall of Fame through her work as a teacher and advisor with student council. And I've purchased my ticket, and I'll be there. I encourage others to do that as well. It's a great event. Item number 2, policies and forms for consideration, second reading. It is recommended that the Board of Education review for the second time with the possible adoption the following new and revised policies and forms to delete. And again, these were presented at the last board meeting for a first reading, and most of these are all just regular updates that are required. Number 3, it is recommended that the Board of Education adopt the resolution permitting the Medina City School District membership in the Ohio High School Athletic Association for the 23-24 school year. And this is presented on an annual basis to the Board of Education. And really, there's not much of a choice, as there's only one athletic association currently in the state of Ohio. Number 4, service agreement and service agreement amendment. It is recommended that the Board of Education accept the following service agreement and service agreement amendment. The first is with Language Learning Associates, Stars and Stripes program. This is a program that we have consistently contracted with in the past. This is for extended year services for special education per student's IEPs. The second is an adjustment to the ESC contract of Medina County to remove the reading specialist services and adjust that to educational 101 services, which is actually a decrease in the contract for the district. And I do like to note that anytime we make any adjustments to our ESC contract, we do come back to the board to make those adjustments. Number 3 is revisions to the 23-24 district calendar. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the revisions to the 23-24 district calendar. And I'm just going to invite Dr. Kwolek up really briefly to discuss that, as she is a leader on the calendar committee.
Thank you, Mr. Sable. I provided the board a quick update of some of the changes in my recent board update. The main thing to discuss is this solar eclipse. So the big change in the calendar for parents is we are going to take a day off, and this was the recommendation from our health department, but also if you read anything about it, upcoming in April of 2024 is the solar eclipse. And so Cleveland area, Medina area are a major observation point for this event, and so we were encouraged to close school because there may be a lot of people in the area. So that you'll notice that is the biggest calendar change. There are also some additional elementary release days and some early releases, which are the major point. But again, the big talking point is the eclipse. So. Solar event. So if you Google it, you'll see it'll come up. And again, for some reason, things I don't understand, they involve physics and science. This area is a major observation point for that day. So again, we're not looking to reduce instructional hours long term. It's a one-time event that doesn't happen very often. So I'm presenting next year's calendar to the board, and then we have a couple other things in the works based on community feedback for the following year's calendar that we're working on.
Thank you. As a former science teacher, I'm excited about the eclipse. So.
I think it's called an eclipse.
Can I
right?
say something real quick on the eclipse?
Solar event.
Yeah, so we're going to be in about 3.5 minutes of totality, and it's probably the first time in 50 years. And so I've never sseen one, so it'll be kind of cool.
Yeah, a couple years ago, I remember I was thinking of Mr. Comer because I think we dealt with elementary principals with it when we were worried because kids weren't allowed to look in the sun, and we were worried we were going to be in trouble because kids were going to look, and what were we going to do? We were going to make them stay inside, but that's a whole nother issue. So what you said is probably a more scientific way to say what's going to happen. Yeah, so again, we brought it because there's some changes in the calendar, so we appreciate the board. Yeah, I'm sure our teachers will have some exciting things and events related to it. That will be the exciting piece. But
I remember doing that in grade school. Yeah. Yeah. In addition, some of those early release changes and stuff are due to contractual changes with MCTA. Number 6 is field trips. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the following overnight field trips in compliance with Policy 2340. And these were actually mentioned at the top of the meeting with the state competitions for swimming. And then number 7, it is recommended that the Board of Education approve the following personnel recommendations pending completion and receipt of all appropriate documentation per our Director of Human Resources. I do want to point out a couple major retirements on here. Jean Blankenship is retiring. She is our Assistant Treasurer for the district, as well as Rob Travis, who has been our transportation supervisor for a very long time and the best transportation supervisor I have ever worked with. we will be honoring all of our retirees in May at our May meeting. So, thank you.
I'll make a motion to approve action items I 1 through 7.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Mr. Nichols. Thank you, Mr. West. Are there any comments or questions from the board?
I just have a comment. I mean, the loss of Rob Travis is huge, and he's done such a great job during the bus crisis and lack of drivers. And based on the previous transportation before him, whose name was also Rob, you have to definitely hire someone whose first name starts with Rob. Gene Blankenship has just, I know, been key. And then I also like to mention Tracy Winkler, outstanding English teacher, and will be missed by the district. So best of luck to all of them.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Chambers?
Yes, Mr. Nichols?
Aye.
Mr. West?
Yes.
Mr. Ross?
Aye.
Ms. Pritchard?
Aye.
Ms. Parkhurst?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Chambers, when you're ready.
Yes, we have additional action items here. Resolution number 1, authorizing the filing of an original complaint against the valuation of real property pursuant to Ohio Revised Code Section 5715.19, Chick-fil-A Incorporated. It's recommended that the Board of Education file an original complaint with the county auditor challenging the determination of the total valuation of property located at 1007 North Court Street, Medina, parcel number 028 19A 09187, and recorded owner Chick-fil-A Incorporated.
I'll make a motion to approve treasurer action item J1.
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. West. Thank you, Mr. Nichols. Any questions or comments from the board? Mr. Chambers?
Mr. West?
Yes.
Mr. Nichols?
Aye.
Mr. Ross?
Aye.
Ms. Pritchard?
Aye.
Ms. Parkhurst?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next action item, resolution authorizing the filing of an original complaint against the valuation of real property pursuant to Ohio Revised Code Section 5715.19, exchange rate. It is recommended that the Board of Education file an original complaint with the county auditor challenging the determination of the total valuation of property located at 401 South Elmwood Avenue, Medina, parcel 028 19C 05 150, and recorded owner exchange rate net leased portfolio 52 DST.
I'll make a motion we approve treasurer action item K1.
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Ross. Thank you, Ms. Pritchard. Any questions or comments from the board? Mr. Chambers?
Mr. Ross?
Aye.
Ms. Pritchard?
Aye.
Mr. Nichols?
Aye.
Mr. West?
Yes.
Ms. Parkhurst?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And finally, resolution authorizing the filing of an original complaint against the valuation of real property pursuant to Ohio Revised Code Section 5715.19, Arbor Falls Golf LLC. It is recommended that the Board of Education file an original complaint with the county auditor challenging the determination of the total valuation of property located at 5588 Wedgewood Road, Medina, parcel number 021 10D 05001, and recorded owner Arbor Falls Golf LLC.
I'll make a motion to approve treasurer action item L1.
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Ross. Thank you, Mr. Nichols. Any questions or comments from the board?
Is that the old country club?
Mm-hmm.
If no other questions or comments, Mr. Chambers, call roll, please.
Yes, Mr. Ross?
Aye.
Mr. Nichols?
Aye.
Mr. West?
Yes.
Ms. Pritchard?
Aye.
Ms. Parkhurst?
Aye.
Thank you all.
Thank you. There is no need for an executive session this evening, so we will
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
adjourn our meeting. Thank you, Ms. Pritchard.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Ross. Mr. Chambers?
Ms. Pritchard?
Aye.
Mr. Ross?
Aye.
Mr. Nichols?
Aye.
Mr. West?
Yes.
Ms. Parkhurst?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you all for attending this tonight's evening. Safe travels home.